Prime Minister has been warned to start bigging up the benefits of Brexit. Finally, will face a near wipeout at the next general election. According to reports, desperate Tory MPs say Sunak has to move off the gloom and doom agendas pushed by the Remainers in Westminster. Well, joining me now is former Brexit Party MEP Ben Habib and former editor of Labour list Peter Edwards. Ben, I'm going to start with you as somebody who sacrificed your career to go to Brussels to try and get Brexit done. We're hearing now there's a revolt amongst the blue-collar Conservatives. They don't believe Sunak's got any real faith in Brexit. Would you agree?
Sunak is not a Conservative, he's not a Brexiteer, and he's most certainly not a Unionist. Sunak is the antithesis of the Prime Minister we'd want in office, trying to deliver a bold, independent, nimble trading nation that the United Kingdom needs to be. The man is ideologically devoid. He's committed to governing through independent bodies which are unaccountable, through supranational institutions which again take away, take away the voice of the people. No, Sunak is not a Brexiteer by any stretch whatsoever. So just to give you some examples, he promised that within 100 days of taking over as Prime Minister, he would have ejected 4,800 EU regulations. Remember, these are EU regulations made by Brussels and adopted verbatim without any debate in Parliament in our statute books. He's U-turned on that completely. He said he'd sort out Northern Ireland, the border down the Irish Sea. Well, today, thankfully, at last, people are beginning to realise that his so-called Windsor Framework, which he purported to be this fantastic solution, is actually nothing more than cementing in the partition between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. What kind of Prime Minister partitions the United Kingdom and tells the people that actually he's brought the United Kingdom together? That is the most monstrous lie that any leader could promote against the interests of the United Kingdom. Absolutely abominable. Northern Ireland has been left behind in the EU, subject to foreign laws made by a foreign legislature and enforced by a foreign court. And then Sunak, on top of that, you touched on it with Nigel Nelson, Sunak presided as Chancellor over the biggest explosion in national debt in history. Sunak presided over the creation of these high taxes that you said, Martin, are the highest since World War II. And he wants us to trust him with fixing the economy. And by the way, cutting taxes is a prerequisite to fixing the economy. We're not going to get out of this hole by ever decreasing circles of wealth. We need the economy growing, and the only way to do it is to cut taxes. So Sunak doesn't understand basic Conservative principles. He's done everything he can to frustrate Brexit, and he most certainly is not a unionist. The man is in the wrong party. He should either cross the floor, join the Labour Party, which Nigel kind of suggested he's trying to do by nicking all the policies that Labour comes up with. I mean, isn't that hilarious? The Conservatives being accused of nicking Labour's policies. You've just got two cheeks of the same backside in office, haven't you? That's what you've got in Westminster. And no, Sunak fails on all counts. Sunak's got to go, and I think he will lose his seat in the next election.
Apart from that, you're a huge fan of the guy. Peter, let's bring you in. So, no love lost there from Ben, but what about this notion of actually getting Brexit done, or at least standing on a platform of it? We're hearing a revolt, particularly in the Red Wall. A lot of first-timers from 2019 very, very fearful of losing their seat when they were they felt down the barrel of 2 or 3 terms. But this isn't necessarily going to go away for Keir Starmer, is it? I mean, we hinted there about what does he actually stand for on Brexit. Do you think that will still be an issue at this election, or is Brexit yesterday's news to Labour voters?
I don't think it's yesterday's news, but the Brexit dream is going sour. And Ben is always very polite and reasonable towards me, but I don't think his answer was entirely reasonable. And it's indicative, really, of how badly the Brexit dream is going wrong. There are people like me who voted Remain but accept the result. But Ben is a very intelligent person. He has a lot of stats at his fingertips, but he ended up in a place where he said Rishi Sunak isn't a Brexiteer, although he voted for Brexit. He called him a liar and then ended up making jokes about buttons and buttocks, or buttocks and bottoms. So to me, that's not really an articulate defence of Brexit on policy. And hold on, you gave Ben a long stint, so Is it going to be an issue for Labour? I think it will be for everyone, because we're all poorer, aren't we? We're all poorer as a result of Brexit.
Except we're not. We're not poorer.
I didn't interrupt Ben. We're all poorer, and the OBR said we'll be 4% poorer. And that's just a fact by an independent forecaster, not an assertion.
Ben?
That is utter nonsense. The OBR forecast in 2021, before we'd actually emerged properly from lockdown, that the economy would, over time, be 4% smaller as a result of Brexit. The only mechanism by which we can be poorer is if trade with the EU is damaged. And thankfully, we now have 1 year's worth of statistics, 2022, outside lockdowns, post-Brexit, where we can measure trade with the EU. And guess what? Exports to the EU were up from 300 billion in 2019 before we left to 340 billion in 2022. Imports from the EU were up again to 432 billion compared to about 400 billion in 2019. The deficit that we ran with the EU...
It's just inflation. It's in real terms flat. Real terms flat.
Absolutely. You said it, Peter, real terms flat. In other words, Brexit has made absolutely no difference to the economic trajectory of the United Kingdom. It has not adversely affected it, and you just admitted it and said it. And this nonsense that Brexit has damaged the British economy, that we're going to be 4% smaller as a result of Brexit, is, as I say, utter nonsense. The reason the British economy is suffering is because we have taxation that's too high, we have government debt that's too high, and we have a government that does not understand how to grow the economy. These are fundamental problems with governance. It's got nothing to do with Brexit.
Peter?
Well, I think getting furious is not the answer. And
I'm not furious.
Remainers like me, to be clear, I accept the result and I'm not pushing for another referendum. But Remainers for me and people, whether they're friends or family or people in the Labour Party, many of us feel the Brexit pain is only just getting started.
What pain?
I didn't interrupt, Ben. It's going to take 10 to
Tell me what the pain is, Peter. What's the pain?
Ben, you said you weren't furious.
No, but articulate the pain. You can't keep saying there is Brexit pain and not actually say what the...
Stop talking. You're doing a disservice to your cause. OK, so Remainers like me feel the Brexit pain is only just beginning. And the economic deterioration, it's quite bad now, but I feel it will get worse because of things like labour shortages, tariffs, barriers, loss of R&D and innovation and so on and so on.
One of the things that Keir Starmer has suggested to address those labour shortages, and indeed Jeremy Hunt, is a relaxation of immigration. Would you like to see that?
Well, excuse me, I don't think it's election winner at all, because there's a clear public mood against freedom of movement. So I think it's just not tenable for anyone standing to be Prime Minister to go to campaign for Downing Street on the basis of restoring freedom of movement.
OK, we've got